Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I will be going over the 4 episodes of the Disventure Camp Staff Story series. If you don't already know, in order to fill the void between seasons 3 and 4 of Disventure Camp, Odd Nation Cartoons has posted a 4-episode miniseries, with each episode being dedicated to one member of the staff. In this case, we got to see episodes dedicated to Jensen, Kristal, Marcus and Nina, and Trevor and Derek. I'm still not sure why we didn't get episodes for Oliver or Emily, but I'm crossing my fingers and hoping that we might get episodes for them down the road. Anyways, for this video, I will share my thoughts on each episode, and then at the end, I will rank each episode from 1 to 4, with number 1 being the episode that I enjoyed the most. Keep in mind that the opinions in this video are subjective. I'm not stating them as fact because I don't feel like I am in a position where I can claim them to be fact. I'm sure that you will probably have thoughts about this series that differ from mine, and you're more than welcome to civilly discuss your thoughts on the series in the comments section. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. Alright, let's start from the beginning by talking about Jensen's episode. Jensen's episode showcases 2 different points in his life. It showcases what happened to him after season 1, as well as some of the events in his childhood that made him the person he is today. Let's focus on the post-season 1 events first. In these sections, it was revealed that Jensen survived the crash when he accidentally drove the bus off the cliff in the season 1 finale. From there, he had to evade law enforcement, which led to him hiding out in a cave and earning the trust of a wolf and their pup. But once the law enforcement started searching the cave, it led to an altercation, which resulted in the wolf being shot, forcing Jensen and the pup to flee and jump down a waterfall. The episode ended with Jensen burying the older wolf, and vowing to start a new life in the wilderness with the pup by his side. Generally, I was pretty content with these sections of the episode. It provided an explanation as to what happened to Jensen after the crash. It showed a bit of Jensen's soft side through his willingness to care for wild animals, and in some ways, Jensen got a bit of a happy ending as he tried to move on and live his life away from the chaos of society. By the end, I was feeling happy for Jensen despite everything he did during the season. I don't really have anything negative to say about these parts of the episode. However, I do have a lot to say about the scenes showing Jensen's early life. In these sections, there were a lot of emotional scenes that also explained a bit of Jensen's background. As far as the episode showed, Jensen's sister Natasha took care of him while she worked at the animal shelter, and Jensen learned the hard reality that not everything in life is sweet. This was shown through him realizing that a driver could have lied about not hitting the puppy he found, and the realization that Natasha was putting down dogs that were in pain. This sequence of events led to Jensen taking the dog he found and running from the shelter. Not only did these scenes further show Jensen's original soft spot for animals, but we got to see that Jensen did start out with a pure heart, and that he wasn't always the gruff, brutish individual that we saw on Disventure Camp. But what really made this episode hit hard for me was the scene in the alley. As a refresher, Jensen took the puppy to an alley to keep him safe, where they were soon cornered by some rabid dogs. Natasha tried to step in to save Jensen, but despite Jensen's attempt to intervene, the dogs overwhelmed Natasha and killed her, leaving Jensen alone, distraught, and begging for forgiveness. From a backstory standpoint, this scene and the graveyard scene showed where Jensen's willingness to kill animals started. But from an emotional standpoint, these scenes really affected me. To be honest, I've only watched this episode twice. Once when it premiered, and again when I was making this video. But it wasn't because the episode was bad. It was because this episode made me so emotional that I actually cried. And it was because of Natasha's death. Now you might be thinking, we only knew Natasha for 5 minutes. How could you cry over that? It wasn't really because of Natasha's character. It was because she was Jensen's older sister. I'll tell you a little fact about me. I have an older sister, and she really helped me through a lot of my life. She tried her best to make sure that I would have a good life, and I would do anything to protect her. So seeing Jensen lose his sister in such a brutal way really made me think of my sister and how I wouldn't want anything bad to happen to her. I know some people might look at this episode and be upset at getting another sad backstory, but I don't mind it. I do think that this gave Jensen a bit of depth, showed how his brute disregard for animals in season 1 didn't start from birth, and how a traumatic event forever changed his life. He still shouldn't have killed all those animals, but at least we got to see an explanation over how he became the person we saw in season 1. And when you add this to the clear explanation that he survived the bus crash and is now living a new life in the wilderness, I think this was a good episode all around. It answered questions while also telling a story. Moving on, let's talk about Kristal's episode. Kristal's episode switched back and forth between the present and the past. For the past, the scene centered around Kristal's audition videos to become a staff member on her father's show, called Race to the Place. In these scenes, there were clear signs of Kristal missing her father due to his prolonged absence. And in the present day, the show focuses on Kristal preparing to go on vacation with Oliver, Marcus and Nina. However, this was interrupted by her father, the host extraordinaire Christoph McLean, who hoped to have a conversation with her. After a brief conversation in his lounge, an intense 1v1 bowling match, Kristal venting her true feelings regarding her father's absence, and watching a compilation of all her audition tapes, Christoph offered Kristal the chance to be his co-host on Race to the Place. And despite originally accepting the offer, Kristal changed her mind and stayed with the rest of the staff, admitting that she would rather stay with her friends and that it was too late for her father to repair their strained relationship. Now, I really like the direction that this episode took. I know that quite a few people expected the episode to go this way, but I don't think that makes the episode worse. I think it was nice to get an elaboration on Kristal's past with her father. After all the hints during Season 2 and the need to distance Disventure Camp from a show that shall not be named, I think taking Kristal's episode in this direction was a good way to explore Kristal's backstory while tying up some of the loose ends that were hinted at in Season 2. At the same time, we got to see a few sprinkles of personality from the other 3 staff members, adding a nice balance of comedy to an otherwise serious episode. But for me, what really sold this episode was the ending. Not necessarily because Kristal chose to stick with the staff instead of her father, but because of what was said in the conversation. Specifically, Kristal told her father that she wasn't sure if he was being genuine or not, and that either way, it was just too late for him to fix things. The reason why I like this ending is because this kind of stuff happens in real life. Even if Christoph was genuinely trying to repair his bond with Kristal, the reality is that not everything can be fixed. Sometimes you might hurt someone so badly that there's no chance of repairing that bond with them. As much as you might want to repair that bond, it can't be done, and all you can do is learn from this experience and make sure that you don't make that same mistake again. And if Kristal wasn't being genuine, then I like the fact that Kristal was able to see the scenario for what it was, realize that she needed to distance herself, and recognize that her true family was already there for her. Plus, it was cool to see Oliver get some sort of closure considering how much hardship he went through as one of Kristoff's interns, even though Kristoff didn't remember who he was. It was a good ending to an episode that people were waiting to see. I know that Kristal may not be the most popular character in the series, but I found myself being entertained by this episode and I was satisfied with its result. In my opinion, the events of this episode accomplished the goals of elaborating on Kristal's backstory, resolving the looming plot between Kristal and her father, as well as setting Kristal on the path to live a healthier and happier life with the people that truly care about her. If this is the last that we see from Kristal, then I feel like we can safely say that she's on a good path and is surrounded by good people. Well, good people and a puppet, but you know what I mean. All around good episode in my eyes. Speaking of a puppet, let's talk about Marcus and Nina's episode. This episode served a dual purpose of showing a bit of Marcus's backstory while also showing how Marcus and Nina met. As for Marcus's backstory, we start by seeing a clip of him at the park with his daughter, who interestingly enough, is named Nina. Nina eventually points out a billboard with dolls on it, and Marcus promises her that once he serves in the army and gets paid, he'll buy her all the dolls she could ever want. Mixed into this conversation is Nina expressing that she's scared to stay with her mom, and Marcus admitting that things are hard with her mom, hinting at some future trouble. This trouble later came up while Marcus was in the army, where he got a phone call that dropped him to his knees. The details of this call were later revealed in the second part of the episode. The second part of the episode focused on a trio of anomaly hunters, named Anika, Molly, and Chet, who Marcus sponsored to investigate the ordinary girl dolls that were advertised earlier in the episode. After some brief conflict where Molly confronted Marcus about his motivations, which led to Anika and Molly briefly arguing about their show, the quartet reached a warehouse where they found 2 remaining ordinary girl dolls. And after freeing them, one of them chased the quartet out of the warehouse and was prepared to attack them with a knife. However, the other doll, who would eventually become the new Nina, quickly stepped forward and burned the first doll to death, saving the quartet from being killed. While Anika, Molly, and Chet were planning to call the cops to deal with the situation, Marcus refused to let that happen, electing to destroy the footage that Chet recorded, forcing the rest of the group to run for their lives. With the trio gone, Marcus assured Nina that he knew she was different, officially named her Nina in honor of his daughter, and took her to safety. And the episode ended with Marcus and Nina tricking a reporter into thinking that Nina was a ventriloquist doll. Overall, I think this episode was alright. It gave us some information on Marcus's backstory, specifically information on his family. Although personally, I would have liked to have learned a little more about it. Maybe a bit more about his relationship with his wife and some indication as to the type of hardships that his wife was going through. As for the Anomaly trio, I liked the introduction of the new characters. I felt like their personalities were pretty well shown throughout the episode. Anika is passionate about her show and tends to put it before anything else. Molly isn't as passionate about the show and isn't afraid to press others to get what she wants, and Chet seems to be pretty easygoing with a few good one-liners here and there. As for the dolls, I think the introduction of the new Nina was pretty good. I really liked how Nina explained that the other doll was her sister who committed some very bad deeds, referencing episode 6 of season 3 when she despised Fiore because she reminded her of her sister. However, I feel like we were left with more questions than answers by the end of the episode. Why are the ordinary dolls sentient? We know that they're sentient, but we were never shown how that came to be. Did the ordinary doll play a role in the deaths of Marcus's wife and daughter? We know that the dolls had a reputation for causing kids to disappear, so did the ordinary dolls have a role in starting the fire that killed Marcus's daughter? And why did Marcus immediately trust the new Nina? Since the dolls have a history of causing kids to disappear, and Marcus wasn't able to completely defeat Nina's sister in the warehouse, why would Marcus trust that Nina wouldn't do the same thing to him when she could probably kill him if she wanted to? Just a lot of questions that I would like to know more of, and I wouldn't mind if we got another episode of Staff Stories to cover this. That being said, I still found the episode to be enjoyable, and it at least accomplished the goal of showing us how Marcus and Nina met. And I'm glad that the Anomaly Trio was able to show their personalities, and I wouldn't mind seeing more of them in the future even if it's just a cameo. Imagine if they make a comeback in the present day and their next mission is to investigate a haunted carnival, which leads them to the set of Disventure Camp Season 4. I think that would be pretty cool. All in all, a good episode in my eyes. Finally, we have Trevor and Derek's episode. This episode flashes back to university, where Trevor and Derek were originally roommates, along with a third student named Moose. Trevor and Derek originally didn't get along, with Trevor commenting on Derek's criticism towards his theater major and his decision to smoke weed in the dorm room. Trevor's comments caused Derek to view him as a buzzkill. However, Derek had a more important thing to focus on. With Moose by his side, Derek hoped to pitch his idea for a reality show to some network executives in hopes of getting out of college and creating his own show. However, after pitching his idea to a professor, the professor admitted that while the idea was good, he felt that Derek's gruff hosting demeanor would turn away the audience. Thus, the professor declared that he would only allow the pitch to be sent to the network executives if he could find someone to replace Derek as a host. This replacement ended up being Trevor, who successfully passed the audition for a new host. This caused Derek to break down, upset that he was being cast aside on a concept that he came up with. Moose tried to get Derek to pull the pitch, but Derek insisted that he did not want to take away Moose's dream of being a host. However, Moose admitted that since he was diagnosed with anxiety, he wasn't sure if his dream was to be on television anymore. Derek tried to assure Moose that he could do it, but when the pitch came, Moose's anxiety came over him and he ran from the pitch. And after taking a bit of time to comfort Moose, Derek stepped in to finish the pitch with Trevor, bringing them closer together. And although the pitch was later rejected, Trevor and Derek agreed to work on the pitch together from that point on. There were several things about this episode that I liked. To start, I like Moose's character. Moose's laid-back demeanor meshes well with Derek's forward personality, so I really like their dynamics and the friendship that blossoms from them. I also like how we learned that it was Derek that came up with the idea for Disventure Camp. I've seen some people criticize this by saying that Derek could never come up with the idea for the show, but I don't think it's entirely out of character. The idea of Derek coming up with an outlet to showcase his personality and legally put others through mild despair seems to be on brand for him. I also think Derek's response to being replaced by Trevor was completely valid. The show was his idea, so for it to be taken over and altered by a person he doesn't like must be devastating. It shows a different side of Derek that I think humanizes him a bit. I know a lot of people don't like Derek, but I don't think that should stop us from trying to appreciate when Derek has moments that build on his character. And I also feel like Trevor and Derek teaming up to finish the pitch was good. It showed that they were capable of bouncing off each other's comments quite well, while showing the audience that they can naturally work well rather than outright telling us that they work well together. As they always say, it's better to show than tell. That being said, I want to discuss two criticisms that I've seen regarding this episode. The first criticism revolved around Trevor not getting enough screen time considering that this episode was supposed to be about him and Derek. I think this is a valid criticism. Even though I really like Moose's character, I would have liked to have seen more from Trevor in this episode. Maybe after Moose comforts Derek about Trevor becoming a new host, Trevor and Moose can have a conversation where Moose apologizes for a bad first impression and asks Trevor to give Derek another chance. This would give Trevor the opportunity to vent his true feelings towards Derek, mirroring the moment where Derek showed his true feelings regarding Trevor, giving them slightly more equal screen time. As for the second criticism, I've seen people criticize the kiss between Trevor and Derek. Now, I'm pretty neutral on the Trevor ship in general, but I feel like having them fall into a kiss is utilizing a cliché. Falling into a kiss isn't as simple as just falling onto someone's mouth. First of all, if by some accident you fall onto someone's mouth, then you must be falling with a decent amount of speed. Meaning that not only would you hit their mouth, you're probably hitting their teeth and jaw as well. And I don't know about you, but I think having someone hit your teeth and jaw with a strong force would hurt like hell. Secondly, their kiss shows them having their lips puckered. If they truly fell into the kiss, then that means they likely fell with their lips already puckered. And I don't know about you, but I don't pucker my lips when I fall. I don't know, it's just two problems that I have regarding this cliché. Overall, I still like the episode. I found it enjoyable that we got to see some background into how Trevor and Derek met, how the concept of this venture camp came to be, while also seeing a pretty interesting character in Moose. From what I've seen, it definitely pleased the Trevor shippers, and it gave a somewhat realistic backstory for how Trevor and Derek met and eventually became partners. Not every pairing is able to hit it off right from the get-go, but that doesn't mean that they'll never work out. Trevor is an example of that, and perhaps we'll see more of their chemistry in Season 4 of this venture camp. All in all, I enjoyed the Staff Story series. But what's my final ranking? Well, I'll start with number 4. At the bottom, I have Marcus and Nina's episode. Even though I was entertained by the anomaly trio and the explanation of how Marcus and Nina met, I still feel like there were some questions that weren't given a full answer, such as why the ordinary girl dolls are sentient in the first place, which is why I have it ranked the lowest. In third, I have Trevor and Derek's episode. I found some entertainment in it and I liked the inclusion of Moose, but I also wish that Trevor got more screen time considering that the episode was dedicated to both Trevor and Derek. In second, I have Jensen's episode. In my eyes, it answered questions as to what happened to Jensen after Season 1, while also giving him a backstory and providing an explanation as to how he became the person he is today. It helped paint Jensen in a different light for me, and if I could redo my tier list from a few weeks ago, I'd move Jensen up a tier, which tells me that I thought the episode was really nice. And finally, I have Kristal's episode at number 1. Oddly enough, when I was looking at polls asking what the community thought was the best Staff Stories episode, quite a few of them had Kristal's episode as the least popular, and I'm a little perplexed by that. I know that there's a part of the community that doesn't like Kristal, but I feel like the episode itself was pretty good. It tied up some of the hints regarding Kristal's backstory, showed how Kristal's relationship with her father deteriorated over time, helped Oliver close off a bit of his own storyline with Christoph McLean, and gave Kristal a bit of closure by declaring that it was too late for her father to repair their bond, and that her true family was Marcus, Nina, and Oliver. And just as I said earlier, if this is the last that we see from these characters, then I think it's a pretty good send-off all things considered. It's a nice bookend to half of our staff from the previous season, and all I hope is that Trevor and Derek can carry the torch for them heading into the next season. And that about does it for this video. What did you think of the video? Do you agree with my review? Do you disagree? How would you rank the episodes from the Staff Story series? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. When you're driving a van, make sure that you don't take your eyes off the road to talk to your passengers, or else you could crash. Seriously, Anika spent way too much time not looking at the road. Thank you, and farewell.